Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you all here to the Municipality of Thames Center Council meeting, regularly scheduled. Today is Monday, January the 29th, 2024, and we're located in the Municipal Office Council Chambers at 4305 Hamilton Road, Dorchester, Ontario. And the time is 5 p.m., and I'd like to call this meeting to order. I don't believe that the clerk has advised me of any additions to the agenda. So
No,
at
Your
this,
Worship.
at this time, I'd like to ask for any pecuniary interest declarations and the nature thereof from council. Seeing none? Okay, we'll move on to announcements, and they do have an announcement to start off the meeting. In this world where every day seems to present even more bad news around the globe, I have been reminded and would like to take this opportunity to let everyone know that this coming Thursday, February the 1st, is recognized as Optimist Day, a day when we can perhaps pause to consider the matter of pessimism versus optimism. From Optimist International, I'd like to read a statement from their website saying a little bit about what it is. Optimist Day is celebrated throughout the world, actually on the first Thursday of February. This is a day when the world can be an optimist themselves in action, plus joining in honoring optimist clubs and members in their communities and worldwide for all they do year-round to promote efforts in bringing out the best in youth, our community, and ourselves. Optimist International clubs and members celebrate Optimist Day to promote their efforts and bring awareness to their communities on how they are making a difference in the lives of youth. At this time, then, on behalf of the Municipality of Thames Center, I offer our sincere thanks and appreciation to our local Optimist branch for all they do and thank them for their optimistic approach to the many good works they do in the community. Thank you. So moving on in the agenda, item number 6 is the planning portion. So I'd like to thank everybody who's come here in attendance, in person and virtually, to participate in tonight's public meeting. Council will consider all comments received when making final decisions on all applications. If you are in person and providing comments this evening, please come up to the podium and speak in the microphone. It may actually be the table here, and provide your name and address for the minutes. Using the microphone is necessary since our meetings are live streamed on YouTube. Basically, tonight, 5-minute limit for any questions, answers, and concerns, and that we request that if you're speaking, do so if you have something new to add or something that has not currently been presented. So I'd like to ask council for a mover and a seconder to adjourn the regular meeting of council at 5:03 and move into the public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act to consider applications listed on the January 29th, 2004 council agenda. Councillor Heeman and Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? Right. Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll turn this over then to the planning department. Mark, are you going first? Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So the first item is an application for draft plan of condominium, also for an official plan and zoning bylaw amendments for a property located here in Dorchester at the west end of Eva Street and the west end of Ida Street here in Dorchester. The purpose of my report is to provide council with background information regarding the subject proposal. I should first point out that this proposal was first presented at a public open house last December in alignment with the communication community communications and engagement goal as outlined in our strategic plan. Also, this proposal was circulated to property owners within 120 meters in accordance with the Planning Act. And lastly, following this public meeting, staff will provide an evaluation report by considering all public and agency comments received, along with a recommendation for council's consideration at a future meeting. I should also point out that in this particular case, it's Middlesex County who's the approval authority for draft plans of condominium, as well as the official plan amendment, whereas it is Thames Centre Council who is the approval authority for the zoning bylaw amendment. Just in terms of background, the subject property, it's a 9-acre parcel of land, again, at the west end of Ida and Eva Streets here in Dorchester. These lands are vacant and contain a significant woodland. The lands are designated residential under the official plan, and they're also zoned residential first density, site-specific, R1-5, and open space. Surrounding land uses include vacant lands to the north and west, subject to Auburn Development's proposed residential subdivision. Also residential uses to the east in the form of single detached dwellings, as well as an industrial use to the south, being Lynn Lumber. So in terms of this proposal, the applicant wishes to develop a residential plan of condominium to support 11 buildings to accommodate 3-story townhouse units to support a total of 61 units. Also, 2 3-story back-to-back stacked townhouse buildings to support 44 dwelling units. As well, a private road, which would tie into the extension of Eva and Ida Streets. Also proposed are 4 areas for a condominium amenity area, also a stormwater management facility, some parkland, as well as a compensation planting area. These lands are also to be serviced by municipal water, sanitary, and storm sewers. In support of this proposal, the applicant has submitted a planning justification report, a traffic impact study, a servicing report, along with a preliminary hydrogeological investigation. Considering there are no sanitary sewers on the in Dorchester north of the Thames River, this development will rely on the need for a force main and pumping station to convey sewage to the south side of the river to tie into the existing collection system, consistent with the municipality's water and wastewater master servicing plan. Financing of this infrastructure is to be borne by developers on the north side of the river through the prepayment of development charges. Also in terms of planning approval being sought, the official plan amendment. And this is to establish a residential special policy area to allow medium density residential uses in the form of townhouse dwellings. And this is because the official plan has evaluation criteria laid out, and that at least 2 of the criteria need to be met. But in this particular case, only 1 criteria is capable of being met in terms of the size of the property. So as such, this form of development is not permitted, hence the requested amendment. I should also preface the fact, Your Worship, that although an OPA is necessary in this case, it would not be required with respect to official plan amendment number 27, which is our official plan review, albeit it is subject to appeal. Through OPA 27, it would allow this form of development, but because of the appeal, this standalone amendment is being requested. Also, a zoning bylaw amendment is being proposed to rezone the subject property to a site-specific residential third density or R3 category to allow street townhouse dwellings subject to site-specific provisions. Another site-specific R3 zone related to the stacked townhouse dwellings, and also open space zones related to the parkland, the compensation planting area, and the stormwater management locations. As I previously indicated, Your Worship, we have circulated the application in accordance with the Planning Act, and these are the comments that have been received from agencies. The County of Middlesex has no comment. Canadian National Railway, because of the proximity of the railway line to the south, they are requesting a number of conditions of draft plan approval. As noted in my report, those include the submission of a noise report, also a noise warning clause to be registered against the title of the property, which would apply to any agreements of purchase and sale or lease. Also, CN is seeking an environmental easement in favor of to outline operational and noise and vibration emissions, that be registered against the title of the property in favor of CN. Also from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, they have no objection. Canada Post, they have submitted standard language in terms of the need for the applicant to provide community mailboxes, and that Canada Post wishes to be informed once civic addressing is provided. Bell Canada, they've also responded and provided language as a condition of draft plan approval, some standard clauses in terms of easement dedications if necessary, and the need for their infrastructure to be installed by the developer. Our Director of Public Works, he's requesting that on the drawing, a continuation of the standard road width of Ida and Eva streets to the private road network that should be provided, as well as including how both streets will be finished immediately west of the private road. Our chief building official, he's noted the width of private roadways and fire route be increased to a minimum of 7.3 meters in conformity with the zoning bylaw, and that the proponent be advised that building permits must be obtained prior to the commencement of construction of any buildings. And then lastly, Your Worship, from our drainage superintendent, he's noted that the applicant will be required to provide a stormwater management report to ensure that the lands have sufficient outlet for their stormwater discharge. In terms of public comments, we did receive some written comments that are appended to my report, and I just wanted to acknowledge the names of those residents that have provided written submissions. We have Trish Robertson and Doug Blair, followed by Darren Gilbert, followed by John and Jeanette Mass, followed by Kevin and Kelly Martin, and then lastly, Mary Ann Hewer. So it's my recommendation, Your Worship, that my report be received and that I provide a subsequent report evaluating the subject applications, taking into account all comments received from the public and agencies, with a recommendation for council's consideration at a future meeting. That's my submission for you this evening. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bancroft. At this time, is there any additional information, or is the owner agent in the room who would like to comment?
Can you hear me? Okay. Just good afternoon, everyone. I don't have a formal presentation for you today, but my name is Taylor Whitney. I'm a planner with Salinga Priama Limited, the planning consultant representing the landowner. I would first like to take this opportunity to thank staff for their work on this project to date. We've had many, many meetings and discussions over a very lengthy period of time to be able to get these applications in front of you today. And it has been a pleasure to work through these applications with them. Mark has done a great job with providing an overview of the application as proposed, and we appreciate his recommendation to move forward. I am joined today virtually by our engineering consultant, and between the two of us and with staff support, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have people in attendance in the room, and I believe we have some people online. Anyone in the room wishing to make a comment, if you could come forward, please, just announcing your name and your address.
Good evening. Neil MacDonald, 7 Ida Street. I just want to say I'm in total opposition of the amendment. As of right now, I mean, you've got 32 homes there and you're going to increase it to 105. The exact same land usage is being consumed. As with the Auburn development, there was a substantial amount of water issues that we brought forth, and it's going to be no different for this property. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to comment or ask questions? Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Robert Scott, 148 Eva Street. So I'm the last house on the west where these apartments will go. I'm really opposed by this opposition of this. There's a water issue there. I have pictures that I can actually forward from the water the other day. The backyard, since you guys have done some digging in that yard already, there's 6 properties on the north side that have flooded every time we get rain. So adding more houses in there is not going to solve this issue at all. It's just going to create a bigger issue. There's nowhere for the water to go. The water table is at less than 1 foot. I talked to Mr. Bancroft the other day to try to get a hold of the people that own the property, which I've had no success of what they're planning on doing in the meanwhile, or before this is approved or not approved. But at this point, I believe this is a bad situation putting this in there. The Upper Thames has been down and shut this possession down a couple years ago when they were in there doing it. So why are they agreeing on this going through? I don't understand that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council, staff, and neighbors. My name is Darren Gilbert. I'm at 15 Ida Street. I've been out to speak on a number of the different developments north of the river. And as with my other neighbors, I'm certainly opposed to this one as well. As with the previous developments or proposed developments, of shared concerns over traffic, groundwater, construction noise, and pollution, along with the costs to the municipality as a result of running sewers north of the river. I noted that Mark mentioned in the past and even today, just paraphrasing, development pays for development. I'd love to see the math on it. I think the development charges per lot are somewhere between 30 and 40,000. You add in all the development north of the river. I'm curious to find out what that adds up to and how much that will pay towards any of the infrastructure that gets that's required to run sewers to this area. Even so much as new roadways, turning circles, stoplights, new roads, pavement over existing infrastructure that needs to be dug up to run sewer mains. I'm curious if any tax dollars from the municipality, existing residents, will be going towards any of this development. For this particular proposal, I'd like to add that I'm concerned that the proposal is not in touch with the surrounding neighborhood in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I find it quite insulting that they would even decide to bring this forward. I'm not sure if this is part of the negotiation process with the community, where they would bring in something that they know would not be approved or not be supported by the community, and then go back and forth and hopefully get something that would be there. But I can tell you right now that three-story townhouses backing on to the existing neighborhood is completely ridiculous. Anybody neighboring onto those properties is going to have stadium seating looking into their backyards. I find that's insulting to the existing neighbors. Additionally, I'd like to add, when I even put up my own shed in my backyard, I was restricted to certain height allowances. I would imagine that these would be outside of those height allowances. I'm not sure why that would be approved. As far as the requirements for multi-res, fronting onto an arterial road, abutting up against major public parks, abutting up against major commercial areas, an overall site of 2 hectares. I challenge that even though perhaps one being the overall size of the property would meet one of those requirements, which I believe Mark said 2 are required for this consideration. The overall site of the property being 2 hectares, I'm curious if you take out the bush area on the west side of the property, if the actual development that will have housing on it is larger than 2 hectares, but that's beside the point. The other 3 requirements, it does not meet a single one of those. So I challenge that that this should be approved. And with that, I take something away that the mayor spoke of at the beginning of the day of optimism, and I am optimistic that council will show that they are in support of the constituents in this neighborhood. They are in support of the constituents within Thames Center. And I strongly encourage them to send the message that Dorchester is not going to bow down to developers searching for profits at the expense of the existing residents. So that's all I had to say on that. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Gilbert. Do we have someone coming in online who would like, or is there someone else to speak? Oh, okay, sorry.
My name's Jeanette Moss. I'm at 18 Ida. My house is the last one on the property and will probably be affected the most because I will have 11 and a half properties looking onto mine. That side of the house, I have my kitchen, my living room, bedrooms, my back porch. All of those properties will be looking into our property. The property drops down about 6 feet from our house. So I do worry about water issues as well because I've talked to our builder and I know he had a lot of issues even building our house on having to dig down so far, had trucks stuck trying to get in. He said he would never build back there again. They had to build our property up so much just to even get that it was good ground to actually build on. And then I have all the same concerns as everybody else does in the area. The properties that they're looking to build definitely don't fit in with the neighborhood. I think our houses are all set back far from the road as well. So if you start putting townhouses that are going to start at the road, just when you're turning onto Ida Street looking down, it's going to look horrific. Like it's not going to fit in with the properties at all. I think.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the chambers before we move to the video link? Sarah, do we have this gentleman coming in to speak?
That is the engineer for the planning application, and there are no members of the public in attendance virtually.
Okay, I'm having trouble reading your name there. Bogdan, is it?
Yes.
Would you like to make a comment or respond to any of the residents' concerns?
I'm here to provide engineering and technical answers for these proposals. So I don't really have any comments on the proposal. And as far as I see, most of the comments from the general public are about the size and height of the proposal. So I don't really have any comments on that. On water, we have, on the groundwater levels, we have some reports prepared that answer those questions. And our technical reports show that whether the proposed buildings are going to be with basements or without basements, in either cases, it is possible to construct these buildings without any major issues with the groundwater using modern civil engineering practices.
Okay, thanks very much. If there are no other, uh,
Thank you again. I'm sorry, Darren, from 15 Ida Street. One of the things I forgot to mention was I took a look at the traffic study and I believe it to be a little outdated, knowing that the proposal for Auburn Developments is going to have an impact on traffic in or on the north side of the river. So before anything gets considered, I would completely recommend that the new traffic study take into consider the 300+ new homes and the multi-res that is on that proposed development, in addition to the fact that the property on the southeast corner of Marion and Clara is also within the residential development boundary for Dorchester, that what could be put on that property as well also be included in a traffic study.
okay, noted. Great. If there are no other questions then from members of the public, then what I will do then now is ask if there are questions from council. Councillor Lockie. Oh, sorry.
Through your worship, to the engineer. So I also echo the concerns of the people in this room regarding drainage. And so you had mentioned that there will be no issues given the modern engineering practices. Would you be able to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, I have not prepared the geotechnical report, but my company has prepared it, and it does have a section on the recommendations for construction. As far as I recall, some of the methods would be dewatering and generally not going as deep, but also our ground monitoring only recorded groundwater levels of 1.3 meters below the ground. So that is for the property in question. I am sorry that the residents are having issues in their backyards, but our monitoring has not really picked that up. On the methods, just deeper foundations, dewatering, but in general, the construction on a slab on a grade, which would mean no basement, and practically the entire structure is on a thick concrete slab that is secured in the ground, would definitely be easier for this property. But that apart from that, I cannot offer any more comments because that is outside of my area of expertise. I have provided the servicing reports for this property and for the North Street subdivision, and that involves water supply, sanitary sewers, and stormwater management.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that answer your question?
Sure. And I just have one
Follow-up,
comment.
yes.
So, I know I recognize that we're just receiving this for information, but, I echo the concerns of the people in this room, especially with drainage. And, we did a survey, we created a strategic plan. And, one of the key themes was that, people want to keep the small town feel. And I'm not convinced that putting, stacked townhouses into this particular area would really, kind of fit what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Councillor Lockie. Anyone else with a comment from council? Councillor Heeman.
Thank you, Your Worship. In a similar vein, seeing as the engineer did prepare the storm drainage report, I'd be curious to hear his justification for the storm works, because I think, we can have debates as to where the groundwater is, but the real issue is that you're looking at the base of, you know, about 200 acres that drains into this, you know, funnels into this property. And, you know, you can have a stormwater pond, but that water's gonna flow. I know yesterday and the day before, we had our drainage pond, it was 2 feet higher than the ground level, you know, so we're looking at a lot more extreme rain events than the historic average has allowed for. And I know, you know, we can account for that with flooding studies, but I don't see any flooding studies in, you know, there's no water bodies, so it doesn't make sense in that instance. There's no water bodies yet until you make your pond. But yeah, I just wonder if you could speak to the storm drainage situation and how you'd be encountering some of the future development situations and as they arise.
Yes, of course. The basic principle of stormwater management is to keep the post-development storm runoff the same as the pre-development. So we are doing modeling. We are modeling the storms and the storm runoff from a certain area. And there is approximately 7 hectares of area that we have identified as draining, all draining towards the same spot, which is around Eva, the end of Eva Street. And through our modeling work, we have determined that yes, the property and the streets and townhouses, they're going to increase the amount of impervious areas. So the areas that cannot take any water to the ground, but the water, the runoff will just go along the surface. So our preliminary report speaks to how we're going to capture all of that excess water and how we're going to store it in a dry pond. A dry pond means that it doesn't have permanent sitting water in it, and it only has water during the rain and after some time after the rain events, usually up to 24 hours. And the most important part here, the pond is storing the excess water and releasing it through the outlet at the same rate as before the development. Now, as to the outlet, we have investigated some of the record drawings from the municipality on the existing sewers on Eva Street and Clara Street that ultimately take the flows to the river. So our preliminary investigation suggests that the pond can outlet to that sewer with an extension. So the pond wouldn't even be outletting anything on the surface because there's no room or area for that to occur. And if I recall, no updates to the existing sewers will be necessary. To your sub question, as far as I understand, we have treated the Auburn development as doing the same. So we have expected in our report that they do the same method of limiting the post-development flows to the pre-development levels, because that is like a basic assumption. So if something different happens in conjunction with their development, we can update our report and our solution or proposed solution and the pond.
Thank you. Does that answer your question or is there a follow-up?
Yeah, just as a follow-up, again, on the traffic note, I know that there's some pre-existing road allowances that would allow this traffic to drain onto Mini Street directly, and I think that, you know, we should probably consider that option more, as there is gonna be a lot of potential residents in this area, and I don't think it really makes sense for them to have to go down Ida and Eva just to go over to Mini in most cases. So I think that's one thing to consider. I think, you know, if if there is a need for affordable housing, I think we should do it in a smart way. And, you know, if we could have more density on the west side and have less density on the east side, I think there's plans for walking trails and, you know, it's closer to the school districts for folks who might live in, you know, an apartment style condo or, you know, just an apartment. And again, you're generally going to have less traffic impact on the neighbors. And if there could be housing developments that fit the single detached or even single attached for the remainder, I think that probably would be a lot more favorable if there is to be development in what, you know, looks like a pretty wet area. And we know these areas are wet because they would have been done earlier if they weren't. And further to that, I think, you know, we have another proposal, and I believe that it's the same planning firm who's responsible for both applications. And I know all of council was at the open house, and I think people are excited to see some of the developments with North Street because it has the type of features that this community has been asking for the 5 years that I've been around this horseshoe. And you know, like the single floor condos allow for seniors to move in and have an independent lifestyle. 60% of our population here in Thames Center is seniors. And again, you know, things that are affordable for people downsizing are also affordable for young families starting up. So I think if you look at these two proposals and how they're going to be received by the community and how they have been received, I think that can give you a direction as to what would be a better fit for this municipality. And again, through our survey, that has been lined out quite clearly. And if there is a need for density, I think that if we can be respectful to our your future neighbors and our existing residents, I think that is well worth the effort.
Thank you, Councillor Heeman. Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not to sound like a broken record, but I do want to thank Tom for bringing up the fact that I do think that there needs to be some infilling and variety of housing, but I don't think that what's proposed today at Eva Ida is what is needed, nor fits the bill for the current area. Just to kind of conclude this session, unless the Deputy Mayor has something to say after me. Okay, not concluding. I think there just needs to be the fact to repeat that, you know, the concerns around land stability and the water concerns are real. It does amaze me that Upper Thames didn't have comment on this, considering their involvement in the past. Councillor Lockie here to my right brought up a really important thing to the whole of council is, you know, our slogan here in Thames Center is "Together we grow." But the premise of that is that we still want to remain a small town feel, and we want to grow in line with what our current residents have while still welcoming people into the area. Unfortunately, this proposal I don't think fits, as I've already said. We're in just position. The North Street is much more aligned with what I think we need as a community. Looking at this proposal as well, some additional concerns on top of traffic and sewer and all of that is just, you know, substantial parking for the residents that would be moving in here. The possibility of including walking paths or additional green space. There's a lot of people packed into a small space here. And I just don't find that welcoming. That's just a comment piece, but specifically to questions, I just wanted to bring forward whether a comprehensive traffic study will be completed to identify the impact these new proposals, including Eva Ida, Hunter Homestead, North Street, etc., will have on the existing roadways and what that looks like as it stands right now. And I'm not sure if this should be directed to Mr. Bancroft or to Mr. Craven.
Who would like to take this one?
Through your worship, it is staff's intention to require a comprehensive approach in terms of traffic impact. There's no doubt that this has merit, in my opinion, considering the housing yield that could occur on the north side of the river. So that's something that we're certainly proposing to pursue as potential draft plan approval conditions, not only for this proposal, but all of them that are affected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bancroft.
I just
Um,
have one last question. Your
yes.
Worship. Sorry.
Go ahead.
And then just to extend on the conversation that we've had about the development charges. Can you expand on whether these development charges aligned with the proposals will be enough to cover the necessary sewer extension and upgrades needed to accommodate hooking up the new residences to the current municipal services?
So through you, your worship, as outlined in our development charges background study and as confirmed by our former director of finance, the required development charges to support development on the north side of the river in terms of the installation of wastewater conveyance, the various sanitary sewers, along with the pumping station and the force main. The background study reveals that 95% of that cost is attributable to growth. So in that regard, it is the municipality's intention that there be collection of DCs to cover 95% of the cost, with 5% being the benefit to the existing community. That 5% would not be able to be paid through development charges, but there would need to be another source of revenue by the municipality, such as, for example, the general tax levy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bancroft.
Thanks, Mark. Does that answer your questions then? Anyone else around council for a question or a comment? Deputy Mayor Smybert, are you looking to?
My question was around the comprehensive traffic review, so that answered my question. And in terms of servicing the north side, has that been budgeted at all? Like, are we looking? You probably don't have a crystal ball to kind of indicate, but I haven't seen any of those figures included in any budgets that I've seen.
Through your worship, I will defer this matter to our Director of Public Works, Mr. Craven. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you. Through your worship, the 2024 budget included a Class EA study for the sewage treatment, the pump station there north of the river. That hasn't been started yet, but it's just a Class EA is for this year here.
Okay. Certainly.
And then, so I can't remember. So once you do the EA, how long do you have in order to do the capital works?
Through your worship, a Class EA shelf life is usually 10 years. A Class EA, the duration of a Class EA study is usually 1 year. It'll take 1 year to complete that.
And just so everyone's aware, it's an environmental assessment because municipalities love acronyms. So I still have my dictionary going. Any other, Tom, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I've heard the figure around 13 to 14 million for this sewer infrastructure. Is that anywhere correct to our staff's understanding?
Anyone able to answer that? Jared?
Their worship, that is without designing and without the engineer's, cost estimate. That's our approximation. That number was received from the DC background study and the wastewater master service and plan. That's where those numbers were generated from.
Okay.
Thank you. Any more?
Yeah, just 5% of that is 650,000, which is 6.5% tax increase. Just quick math.
Anyone else from council with a question or comment? I'd just like to ask the engineer just a question if I went, so that I'm clear on this. Did I understand that the stormwater management ponds are dry they're not sort of the traditional ones that you would see in most subdivisions then?
Yes, Your Worship, there are two kinds of ponds. We can make both wet facilities that will have a permanent water level and dry facilities that will kind of look, they can even be grassed. So they kind of just look like a little dip or a valley that fills up with water like a regular pond would, and then everything drains after a day or two after a rain event. And the dry ones are usually made for smaller developments. The big ones are for subdivisions over 5 to 7 hectares. And this proposal being smaller, we have decided to go with a dry facility.
Thanks. I just wanted to be clear because in my mind as well, I'll make a comment here. 9.1 acres is a fairly small piece of property for what is proposed. So I understand the need to kind of compact everything. I'd like to ask Taylor, if I may. Will some of these units or all of these units have garages? Is
Thank
that
you.
the design idea?
So the exact design of the homes hasn't been determined yet, but we do anticipate that the townhouses, not the back-to-back stacked, but the regular townhouses will each have a garage.
And then on that idea of garages and that sort of thing, there's parking. eh, What is the sort of ratio that you would be looking at for unit and as against the amount of parking?
So we are compliant with the zoning bylaw requirements for parking ratios. I believe for each of the townhouses, we are able to easily provide 2 parking spaces, one within a garage and one within a driveway. And for the back-to-back stacked townhouses, we've required the required amount of spaces, and perhaps Mark can help me, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, plus the required visitor spaces for that kind of development.
Thank you. Mr. Bancroft, do you know the answer to that?
Your worship, unfortunately, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know the standards
right.
as well as perhaps I should. From memory, I don't. I'd have to
Okay.
confirm that. Thank you.
I believe it would be a 1.25 or 1.5 per unit.
That's what I'd heard before, so I was just looking to have somebody with some knowledge. So as you've heard from council, it's one of my concerns as well, is that it's a pretty dense type of project for that particular area. And they do have, I do have concerns like the rest of council that we as a municipality encourage development and we're mandated to do it under Bill 23 as well. Municipalities have maybe a few less options than we had in the past. But in the meantime, while we need to provide a different level of housing and that sort of thing too, I am cognizant of the fact that there are residences around here which are in this particular area, in particular, residential first. In other words, they're single-family homes. So the height of the buildings and that sort of thing, I do understand with something that's maybe a little bit more in line with what is in the surrounding area as well. That's all I have to. Tom, you had another comment?
Yeah, just 2 more comments. One is that, speaking of all these different bills, the conservation authorities can no longer comment on natural heritage. So seeing as there's no defined flooding risk because no water of body, there's not much for Upper Thames to comment on. So the natural heritage comments is now, it's for the municipality to oversee. So I think it's very important that we actually get those hydrology and drainage studies they're not on public access yet. So I think that's very important for us to proceed in any fashion. And thirdly, or second, are these homes designed to be attainable? And I mean that in accordance with the new Bill 23 definition. I would ask the developer's representative if these homes potentially could fit that definition.
Hi, yes, I'm actually happy to answer both of the comments you made, the first being on the UTRCA. The UTRCA was consulted extensively before Bill 23 received royal assent. Discussions about this development have been ongoing for quite some time. And I do just want to mention that the plan and the density proposed has not changed since UTRCA's involvement. So the compensation planting area, for example, and the drip line of the significant woodland, that was all determined through consultation with them. So while that ability to comment has been generally taken away from them with this development in particular, they did consult with us quite extensively. As for the attainable housing, right now it is the intent that these would be market rate units, but our developer has not set anything in stone as per a price point per unit. Obviously, with adding more units onto land, we can achieve a more efficient land use and hopefully be able to bring down the cost of each unit if the density being requested is granted.
Okay. Thank you. That's good that they plan to be market rate in one way, because Bill 23 would rebate you the development fees and we'd have a pretty big bill to pay. So that's just something to be cognizant as these provincial regulations shift, that it makes it difficult for us to plan these types of engagements.
Thank you. Any other comments from council before we move on? Seeing none? Then I will remind you that we're going to be, as per your agenda, we're going to be asking council to move on just the, not accepting the proposal, but receiving it for information. So I just wanted that to be clear to everyone sitting in the room. So do I have a mover on the proposed recommendation to receive the report and for a subsequent report evaluating the applications to be provided at a future meeting? A mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Smybert and a seconder. Councillor Crockett. All in favor? That motion carries then. Thank you. Thank you to everyone for coming out and providing your comments. Thank you to the engineer and to you, Taylor, for being present here to answer questions. So thank you again. Then we will move on to item number 6.2, application for draft plans subdivision, draft plan of condominium and zoning bylaw amendment regarding the property at 246 North Street. So again, the purpose of this public meeting is to obtain feedback from the public, and the Director of Planning will provide a subsequent report evaluating the said applications with a recommendation for council's consideration at a future meeting. So an overview of the report, Mr. Bancroft, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. Similar to the previous proposal, this one was originally presented at a public open house held last December in alignment with the community communications and engagement goal as outlined in our strategic plan. Also, we did undertake a circulation of this proposal in accordance with the Planning Act. So we did circulate to property owners within 120 meters as well as to prescribed agencies. Just in terms of background, the subject property, as noted on the screen, it is a 2-hectare parcel of land located on the east side of North Street, north of Minnie Street, and backing onto the Village Gate subdivision here in Dorchester. It's also located at the west end of Village Gate Drive. These lands are designated residential under our official plan, and they're also currently zoned residential first density holding. And also these lands are regulated under the Conservation Authorities Act. In terms of surrounding land uses, we've got to the east, we've got residential uses in the form of single detached dwellings, being the Village Gate subdivision. We also have residential uses to the north and south, albeit on larger lots, also in the form of single detached dwellings. And to the west, we have a natural heritage feature in the form of a woodlot on the opposite side of North Street. In terms of the subject proposal, we have a proposed plan of subdivision, 7 lots altogether to support single detached dwellings. It would facilitate an extension of Village Gate Drive to be extended westerly to connect with North Street. These lots would also be serviced by municipal water, sanitary, and storm sewers. There's also an easement proposed between lots 3 and 4 to convey stormwater to the adjacent proposed condominium stormwater management block, which leads me into the plan of condominium proposal. What is being proposed there is 25 units or lots to support single detached dwellings. Access to those dwellings would primarily be by a private road network with 2 points of access onto North Street, along with a stormwater management block. These lands would also be serviced by municipal water, sanitary, and storm sewers. In support of this proposal, the proponent has provided a planning justification report, a traffic impact study, servicing, as well as a preliminary hydrogeological investigation. As mentioned with the previous proposal, Your Worship, this development will rely on a force main and pumping station to convey sewage to the south side of the river to tie into the existing collection system, considering there's no sanitary sewers on the north side of the river. And this is consistent with the direction offered by the municipality's water and wastewater master servicing plan. And financing would be borne by developers on the north side of the river through the prepayment of development charges. Also, as mentioned, there is a zoning bylaw amendment proposed, seeking site-specific residential first density requirements to support the proposed single detached dwellings. In the circulation of the applications, Your Worship, we did receive some agency comments from the County of Middlesex. They have no comment. From the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, they're generally satisfied with the proposal and note that concerns in their opinion can be adequately addressed through finalized reports subject to the following conditions of draft plan approval. Those are noted in my report, but I'll just briefly touch upon them. Need for a final hydrogeological study, final functioning servicing and stormwater management report, also submission of a grading plan and erosion and sediment control measures. And also, they point out the need for the applicant to obtain approvals from the UTRCA prior to any site alteration, considering these lands are regulated by the Conservation Authorities Act. Canadian National Railway, they have no comment, considering how set back this development is from the railway line to the south. From Canada Post, they've provided some a standard response in terms of the need for the developer to provide community mailboxes, as well as for Canada Post to be notified once new civic addresses have been assigned. From Hydro One, no comment. From our Public Works Director, no comment. Our Chief Building Official acknowledges that building permits will be required prior to the construction of any buildings. And lastly, our Drainage Superintendent has noted that the applicant will be required to provide a stormwater management report and ensure that their lands have sufficient outlet for their stormwater drainage. In terms of public comments received, We have two individuals who've provided comments. We've got Pete and Maria Marchenko, as well as Trish Robertson and Doug Blair. Those submissions are appended to my report, Your Worship. So it's my recommendation that my report be received and that I provide a subsequent report evaluating these applications, taking into account all public and agency comments received, along with a recommendation for council's consideration at a future meeting. Lastly, Your Worship, I just wanted to provide council with a friendly reminder that the County of Middlesex is the delegated approval authority for draft plans of subdivision along with draft plans of condominium. However, of course, Thames Center is the approval authority in dealing with the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. I'm here to answer any questions, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. Just before I move on to asking Taylor if she has any, we're talking a vacant land condominium concept. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, Your Worship, that is correct.
Okay.
So with a vacant land condominium, it deals with the creation of individual units, or when I say unit, that term is synonymous with a lot. So individual lots would be created, and then single detached dwellings as proposed would be erected on those lots or units. Thank you.
It's just for those who don't know, it's just a little bit of a different way of aligning a condo project in that you own the land and the house, unlike a standard condo. Go ahead.
Yeah, Your Worship, just for council's information as well as for the public, if you wanted a visual in terms of what is being proposed in terms of a vacant land condo, there's of course the Village on the Thames development down the road here on Hamilton Road, which is comprised of single detached dwellings. That is a vacant land condo, or the acronym would be VLC. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew exactly what it was we were talking about. So getting back to the meeting here now, do you have any comments or and more information that you'd like to provide, Taylor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Me again. No, I don't have any additional comments beyond what Mark has said, but as with the previous application, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. So is there anyone in the room from the members of the public who would like to comment or ask questions on this particular application? No? And Sarah, do we have anyone online waiting?
There's no one online, Your Worship.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for our engineer? No? Okay. All right. Then I will turn it over to council for any questions that they might have. No questions, no concerns? Okay. All right then. If there is nothing else, then there's no further discussion. The public meeting is now closed and council can make their decision on the application. So do I have a mover on the proposed recommendation to receive the report and for a subsequent report evaluating the applications to be provided at a future meeting? A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Smyberg and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? A motion passes then. Thank you very much. Thank you, Taylor, and thank you, Bogdan, for your time. All right. The next item on the agenda is item 6.3, the consent application, B22-23, Peter and Nancy Desjardins applicants at 12 Meadowbrook Lane in Thorndale. And I understand Ms. Cortez is taking this one. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose of the consent application is to sever a parcel of land to allow the creation of a building lot to support the construction of a single detached dwelling. The subject property is a 0.5 acre lot located on the north side of Meadowbrook Lane and west of Countryside Lane in the village of Thorndale. The lands are zoned residential first density according to the zoning bylaw and are designated residential according to the official plan. The lands contain a single detached dwelling and a garden shed which is to be removed. The applicant is proposing to sever a parcel of land having a frontage of approximately 39 meters along Meadowbrook Lane and Countryside Lane and an area of approximately 0.17 acres to allow a building lot to support a single detached dwelling. The lands to be retained would contain the existing single detached dwelling and would have a frontage of approximately 32 meters and an area of approximately 0.3 acres. The provincial policy statement, the County of Middlesex official plan, and the Thames Center official plan all encourage intensification, infilling, and redevelopment in settlement areas on municipal services, provided the development is compatible with the surrounding area and represents an orderly and efficient use of land and infrastructure. The foregoing policy direction has been satisfied or is capable of being satisfied through conditions of consent. Thames Center's official plan also provides criteria in which the division of land may be permitted. These matters have been addressed or are capable of being addressed through the conditions of consent. The lot to be severed and to be retained are also capable of complying with the Thames Center zoning bylaw. Staff are of the opinion that the subject proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement and in conformity with both the county and Thames Center official plans. The proposal would also conform to the Thames Center zoning bylaw. In regards to comments received, the county engineer, Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, Bell Canada, Hydro One, and the drainage superintendent advised no comments or concerns. The Director of Public Works advised for the lot to be severed, the new driveway should be no more than 1 meter from the westerly property limit to avoid conflict with the intersection. Also, separate water, storm, and sanitary sewer services should be installed to the property line. The chief building official advised the proponent shall connect future development to the municipal drinking water and sanitary sewage systems. The shape of the proposed lot would make compliance with the regulations of the zoning bylaw very challenging. In response to the chief building official's comment, planning staff can advise compliance with the zoning bylaw can be achieved with the placement of a suitable building envelope meeting all zoning bylaw requirements, including maximum lot coverage and minimum setbacks. Note that there would not be a rear yard setback requirement for the lot to be severed, being a triangular shaped lot. The foregoing is a technicality which would not preclude the provision of appropriate rear yard amenity space for the proposed lot. No public comments have been received to date. Planning staff recommend that the consent application be approved subject to the 9 conditions noted in the report for the reasons outlined in the report. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Is there anyone in the room who should speak to this?
Your worship, I've got the applicant in virtually, Peter Desjardins. I'm going to bring him in.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Peter. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, Mr. Desjardins. Did you have anything else that you wanted to provide following Ms. Cortez's report?
No, I think everything that we discussed with Mark and the staff covered the requests that we have. One comment that I'd like to make is that if the application does get approved, it would allow for my daughter to be able to purchase a house or have a house built on land closer to us. With the cost of housing these days, it would make it possible for her to be able to afford a house. Yeah. And being of my age, 77 years old, it's become more challenging to be able to maintain that lot, which we do quite extensively.
Thank you very much. I sympathize. All right, that's it then, Sarah, nobody else. Okay, okay, questions from the members of councils at this point? Any questions from anyone? Okay, all right. If there are no further discussion, then the public meeting is now closed and council can make their decision on the application. So there's a recommendation for approval for consent application B 22-23, subject to 9 conditions as included on your agenda. Do I have a mover for this? Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Heeman, all in favor? That motion carried. Thank you. And the next one, item number 6.4, consent application B 21-23 and zoning bylaw amendment application Z 36-23, Patricia Cornelia Wooters applicant, Monteith Ritzma Phillips Professional Corporation as the agent, and the property is at 4673 Dundas Street. And again, Ms. Cortez, you're taking this one? Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose of the consent application is to facilitate the disposal of a dwelling surplus to a farming operation as a result of farm consolidation. The purpose of the rezoning application is to rezone the balance of the farm to prohibit any new residential use. The subject property is a 100-acre farm located on the south side of Dundas Street between Shaw Road and Richmond Street. The lands are designated agricultural within the Thames Center official plan and are zoned agricultural within the zoning bylaw. The property is used primarily for the cultivation of field crops and contains a single detached dwelling and a garden shed. The dwelling is serviced by a private well and septic system. The lands to be severed would have a frontage of approximately 54 meters along Dundas Street and an area of approximately 1.47 acres and would contain the single detached dwelling. The lands to be retained are vacant and would have a broken frontage of approximately 555 meters along Dundas Street and an area of approximately 99 acres. The applicant is also proposing to rezone the lands to be retained from the agricultural zone to the site-specific agricultural A-45 zone to prohibit any new residential use. The provincial policy statement and the County of Middlesex and Thames Center official plans generally permit lot creation in agricultural areas for a dwelling surplus to a farming operation as a result of farm consolidation, provided that criteria has been satisfied. Staff are satisfied that the criteria has generally been met. Any issues regarding the location of septic system and well can be addressed through conditions of consent. Planning staff are satisfied that the subject applications are consistent with the provincial policy statement and in conformity with the County and Thames Center official plans. In regards to agency comments received during the circulation of the subject applications, the county engineer advised the owner will be required to dedicate lands across the frontage of the property to a distance of 18 meters from the center line of construction for road widening purposes, if the right-of-way is not already to that width. The chief building official advised the proponent shall provide a survey which shows the distance between the proposed new property lines, septic system, including the tank and leaching bed, to confirm compliance with the Ontario Building Code requirements. The drainage superintendent advised drainage reassessments are required. No comments or objections from the Director of Public Works, Bell Canada, or Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. No public comments have been received to date. Planning staff recommend that the consent application be approved subject to the 9 conditions noted in the report for the reasons outlined in the report. And also that the zoning bylaw amendment application be approved in principle and that staff be directed to prepare the necessary zoning bylaw amendment for council's consideration at a future meeting. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alana. Applicant or agent in the room or online wishing to make a comment?
No
None?
one online, Your Worship.
Okay, all righty, and no one in the room. Okay, then I'll turn it over to council. Does anyone from council have any questions regarding this application? No? Okay. Then, seeing none, then there's no further discussion, so the public meeting for this application is now closed and council can make their decisions on the application. There are 2 decisions before you. One requires consent. The other one is concerning zoning. So there's a recommendation for approval for consent application B 21-23, subject to 9 conditions as included on the agenda. Do I have a mover for this particular one? Councillor Lockie and Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Thank you. That motion. The next one is for the zoning amendment. Recommendation for approval of zoning amendment application Z 36-23 as included on the agenda. And again, a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Crockett and Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item number 6.5, consent application B 23-23 and zoning bylaw amendment application Z 37-23. Stephen and Shelley Gostis, applicant, Patrick Crinklaw, agent, and the property address is 3014 Crampton Drive. And again, Alana, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of the consent application is to facilitate the disposal of a dwelling surplus to a farming operation as a result of a pending farm consolidation. The purpose of the rezoning application is to rezone the balance of the farm to prohibit any new residential use. The subject property is a 92-acre farm located on the north side of Crampton Drive and east of Lewis Road and backing onto the CP Railway. The lands are designated agricultural and protection area according to the Thames Center official plan and are zoned agricultural and environmental protection within the zoning bylaw. The property contains a single detached dwelling, an above-ground pool, and a shop. The dwelling is serviced by a private well and septic system. The property is used primarily for field crop cultivation, although also includes a natural heritage feature in the form of a woodlot located at the back of the farm, which is bisected by a municipal drain. The affected lands are regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. The applicant's agent has entered into an agreement of purchase and sale with the applicant to purchase the lands to be severed, being the farm parcel and the woodlot, whereas the applicant would retain the ownership of the lands to be retained containing the residential use. The lands to be severed would have a frontage of approximately 68 meters along Crampton Drive and an area of approximately 90 acres. The lands to be retained would have a frontage of approximately 74 meters along Crampton Drive and an area of approximately 2.18 acres. As mentioned, the farmland is to be rezoned from the agricultural A zone to the site-specific agricultural A-45 zone. It's important to note that the land zoned environmental protection will remain unchanged. The provincial policy statement and County of Middlesex and Thames Center official plans generally permit lot creation in agricultural areas for a dwelling surplus to a farming operation as a result of farm consolidation, provided that criteria has been satisfied. Staff are satisfied that the criteria has been generally met. Any issues regarding the location of septic system and well can be addressed through conditions of consent. Planning staff are satisfied that the subject applications are consistent with the provincial policy statement and in conformity with both the county and Thames Center official plans. In regards to agency comments received during the circulation of the subject applications, the county engineer, the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, Bell Canada, Hydro One, and the Director of Public Works indicated no concerns or comments. The chief building official advised that the owner shall provide a survey showing the distance between property lines, existing accessory structures, and the septic system to confirm compliance with the Ontario Building Code. The drainage superintendent advised municipal drain reassessments required. No public comments have been received to date. Planning staff recommend that the consent application be approved subject to the 9 conditions noted in the report for the reasons outlined in the report, and also that the zoning bylaw amendment application be approved in principle and that staff be directed to prepare the necessary zoning bylaw amendment for council's consideration at a future meeting. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alana. Is the applicant or agent in the room and offering any more? Okay. Would you like to state your name and your address? I guess we're bringing you a mic there.
I'm Patrick Crinklaw. I live at 2703 Bradley Ave, and we're agreed to buy the property, and she's the property owner.
Okay. So nothing further to add then, over and above the report? Okay, thank you. And I don't think there is anyone in the room or online.
There's no one online, Your Worship.
Okay, and anyone in the room wanting to speak to? No? Okay. So questions from the members of council on this one? Okay. Seeing none, then we will move that the public meeting is now closed and council can make their decision on the application. So we have two decisions to make. One for consent again and one for zoning. There's a recommendation for approval for consent application B 23-23, subject to 9 conditions as included on the agenda. And do I have a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Smyber and Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. The second you flip the page here. The second one is a recommendation for approval of zoning amendment application Z 32-23, also as included on the agenda. And do I have a mover and a seconder for this one? Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. The next item on the agenda is 6.6 zoning bylaw amendment application Z 38-23 Abraham Elabad applicant, and the property address is 4406 Dundas Street. So again, an overview by our planner, Alana. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose of this application is to rezone the subject property to allow a car wholesaling use as an additional permitted use under the existing zoning, which is otherwise prohibited. So the subject property is a 0.84 acre commercial lot situated on the north side of Dundas Street at Shaw Road. The lands contain a single detached dwelling and a detached garage and are designated highway commercial according to the Thames Center official plan. The lands are zoned as site-specific highway commercial HC-3 zone, which permits an automobile service station, single detached dwelling, a vehicle service shop, and an accessory open storage for the commercial uses listed. The applicant is proposing to establish a car wholesaling use, which is otherwise not permitted under the current zoning. This use would involve the sale of used cars not intended to be sold to the general public and would be accommodated within existing buildings on the property. The applicant is also proposing to operate a vehicle repair shop permitted under the existing zoning. The provincial policy statement, the County of Middlesex official plan, and the Thames Center official plan generally support commercial activities within commercial designations. In particular, the Thames Center official plan encourages commercial uses to be located along arterial roads. Staff are of the opinion that the proposed use would align with the foregoing policy direction. The Thames Center official plan also requires that prior to final approval of a zoning bylaw amendment, certain criteria are satisfied. Staff are of the opinion that the criteria is capable of being satisfied considering no physical change will be taking place on the subject lands as the applicant intends to make use of existing buildings and structures. Unacceptable adverse effects on surrounding uses are not anticipated. The subject proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to both the Middlesex County and Thames Center official plans. In regards to agency comments received, no comments or concerns were identified. No public comments have been received to date. Planning staff recommend that zoning bylaw amendment application Z 38-23 be approved in principle and that staff be directed to prepare the necessary zoning bylaw amendment for council's consideration at the next regular meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The applicant is in the room. Do you have any additional comments or, okay, all right. No, I think he's fine, Sarah, thanks. Anyone in the public who wishes to comment or ask questions? No one online? Okay. Then from the members of council, any questions? Deputy Mayor Smybert.
I have one for the applicant and one for the planner. So how many vehicles would be stored on the lot at one time?
Very small.
Thank you. And would this application be subject to site plan? I didn't see that in the report. I know there'll be no new buildings. I just wonder just in case there were more than the one or two cars on the site.
I don't believe so. Oh, through you, Mayor. I don't believe so.
Councillor Heeman then.
Yeah, I just want to comment that I think there's been a lot of upgrades to this property in the last couple of years, and it's a testament to the owners. And in my lifetime, there's always been cars sold on that corner. So I applaud him for looking to do things the right way. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heeman. Any other questions or comments from the members of council? Okay, seeing none, there's a recommendation for approval of zoning application Z38-23 as included on the agenda. Do I have a mover and a seconder for this particular one? Councillor Lucky and Councillor Crockett, all in favor? Great, that motion carries. Thank you. The next one is 6.7, a mover and a seconder to close the public meeting, the planning portion of the public meeting, and adjourning at 6:25 p.m. in order to sit as the Committee of Adjustment under the Planning Act to consider the application listed on the January 29th, 24 council agenda. A mover and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. Moving on to Committee of Adjustment, item number 7 on your agenda. Minor variance application A11-23, 1365351 Ontario Inc., care of Glenn Bogart, applicant, Todd Bogart, agent, and the property address is 1054 Shaw Road. An overview of the application, Mr. Brycroft, when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this application is seeking relief from the municipality's comprehensive zoning bylaw for a reduced interior side yard width to allow the construction of a building accessory to an existing industrial use. The subject property, it's a 6-acre parcel of land located on the east side of Shaw Road and on the south side of Gore Road. The property contains an industrial use in the form of a contracting operation, which is WeatherTech Restoration Services, and it's located in a building having a floor area of approximately 4,250 square meters, and it's privately serviced by a potable well and septic system. The property is also subject to site plan control with a site plan agreement registered on title. These lands are also designated rural industrial and zoned accordingly. So the applicant is proposing to construct a 557 square meter building accessory to the main industrial use for the storage of materials and equipment. This building is to be situated behind the main building on the east side of the property with a reduced side yard width of 8 meters compared to the required side yard of 18 meters under the M2 zone. The applicant's indicated that he's unable to comply with the required side yard due to the proximity of an existing drainage ditch. I've conducted my analysis, Your Worship, and I'm satisfied that the 4 tests under the Planning Act have been met, in that the effects of this variance can be considered minor in nature. This is an appropriate use of the land. Also, this proposal would meet the general intent and purpose of both the official plan and the zoning bylaw. In the circulation of the application to agencies, I can confirm that the county engineer and the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, they have no comment or no objection. Also, our drainage superintendent is requesting that the applicant provide a stormwater management brief showing how alterations to the site will be handled without adverse impacts onto neighboring lands. Also, our Director of Public Works has no comment, and our Chief Building Official has confirmed that a building permit will be necessary for the proposed building to demonstrate compliance with zoning and also requirements under the Ontario Building Code. To date, no responses have been received as of the date of this report from the public. So it's my recommendation, Your Worship, that this application be approved, subject to the condition that the applicant provide a stormwater management brief, to the satisfaction of our chief building official and our drainage superintendent, and based on the reasons outlined in my report. I'm here to answer any questions, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. Is the applicant or agent in the room wishing to speak? I'm sorry? Okay, so we'll move on to public questions then. Yes, absolutely. Your name and your address, please?
Brad Hoxer, 4578 Gore Road. The property beside that is 4449 Gore Road, and we own that property as well. And we farm the land around it. So yeah, just the concerns about the environmental stuff and the fire hazard elevated due to the lack of the buffer between the two properties. It's going to be reduced, so I had a concern about that because there was a fire there once before. And you get the fire department coming dumping gallons of water on there, and I'm sure there's chemicals in that building I'm concerned about, so. And where the X was on the map, Mark, is that where, that's where the septic bed is now, right?
Through you, Your Worship, I don't know the location of the septic bed. However,
That's where it is. I know it is.
however, I should also point out that I believe the proposed building envelope is further north than the star would indicate on the map.
Okay.
And when I mean further north, my report provides the distance that it would be situated from that neighboring dwelling, which is about 70 meters, if not 230 feet. Thank you.
Yeah, just to worry about how it's going to affect my crops. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mark, before I turn this over to questions from council, where is the drainage ditch? I don't, there's, I see the lagoon up there, like the stormwater management. I just wondered if where the drain is. Are you aware?
Yeah, unfortunately, Your Worship, I'm not able to confirm the location of that existing drainage ditch.
All right, okay. It looks like I can see a bit of a shadow, but I just wanted confirmation. Okay. Any questions from the members of council regarding this application? Councillor Heeman.
For your worship, just to address the concerns from the public, do we have, what kind of shed are they seeking to construct? Is it,
so through you, Your Worship, what I know is that it is a cold storage building. So it's not as if the building would be heated. And it also would be a fabric covered structure, such as a coverall, for example.
So would that be like a Quonset with a tarp covering?
Your Worship, unfortunately, I'm not able to confirm the details beyond that.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Councillor Heeman? You're looking a little puzzled.
yeah, so I'm just trying to think about hazardous material control plans, but it's escaping me. But through the conditions of site plan, is it possible to ensure that there's mitigation for any potential negative effects? You know, like with like the storage of fuel and or industrial chemicals?
Through you, Your Worship, I'm not aware of a mechanism to control how the building is to be used from a storage standpoint in terms of, you know, what items can be stored specifically. You know, ultimately, I just want to point out the fact that the 8 meter separation would be to the property line. And also the fact that with the adjacent lands, there are no buildings or structures. Yes, there is an existing dwelling. However, it is approximately 7 meters away. I should also point out that typically with industrial uses, when they're juxtaposed next to industry, the side yard requirement is 5 meters. So I just wanted to point that out for the committee's consideration.
Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. Any other questions from members of council? Okay, seeing none, there's a recommendation for approval for minor variance application A 11-23, subject to one condition as included on the agenda. A mover and a seconder for this motion. Councillor Lockie and Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? Okay, thank you. The motion carries. Now, at this point, well, a mover and a seconder to adjourn the Committee of Adjustment, that the Committee of Adjustment adjourn its meeting at 6:36 p.m. and council reconvene its regular meeting. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Lockie, all in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Yeah. Moving on to item number 8, a mover and a seconder that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on January the 15th, 2024 be approved as circulated. Councillor Lockie and Councillor Crockett, all in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Consent agenda under item number 9. Items listed under the consent agenda are received for information in one motion. Council members may request that one or more item be removed for further action. In this case, I don't believe there's anything, but a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Reports of the departments, item number 10.1, PW-DR-002-24, Jones and Terry, request for drainage works update. And I think Mr. Craven's taking this one tonight. Thanks. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Your Worship. Report PW-DR-002-24, Jones and Terry, request for drainage work updates. On August 14th, 2023, council accepted a request for drainage work. That report was PWDR-1223, Jones petition, request for drainage work. Since that time, an additional owner has been registered to the requesting property. For the petition to remain valid, all owners of a property must include their signature on the petition. Adopting this request will do just that and keep the petition valid for allowing, in order to allow the engineer to continue. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Jared. Any questions from council on this matter? Okay. All right, then, a mover and a seconder for the motion before us that report number PW-FL-001-24 be received for information and that council direct staff to award the, I'm sorry, I skipped a line here. Sorry. Let's start again. That report number PWDR-002-24 of the drainage superintendent dated January the 29th, 2003 concerning a request received by Daniel Jones and Christine Terry for a request for new drainage works be received for information and that the petition submitted by Daniel Jones and Christine Terry under Section 4 of the Drainage Act RSO 1990 for new drainage works in relation to the property located at concession number 4 West, part lot 16, former township of West Missouri be received and adopted. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Heeman and Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Now let's move on to the other one. Item 10.2, PWFL -001 -24, RFT TC -002 -24, new 3/4 ton 4x4 pickup truck tender award. Mr. Craven?
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is to award the purchase of a Chevy Silverado 2500 HD 4x4 pickup truck to Finch Chevrolet Cadillac Buick GMC Limited. The bid submission is under the budget, but is being presented to council tonight in adherence with our procurement policy. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from council on this one? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you.
So the motion is that report number PW-FL-001-24 be received for information, and that council direct staff to award the purchase of a Chevrolet Silverado 2500 HD 4x4 pickup truck to Finch Chevrolet Cadillac Buick Limited, or GMC Limited. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Smybert, and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 10.3, PDS 001-24, application for zoning bylaw amendment Z10-22, Rasha Nazar, applicant, Finlater and Associates Inc., agent, and the property is at 4074 and 4086 Elgin Road, Mossley. There again, Mr. Bancroft, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose and effect of this application is to rezone the subject lands to a site-specific Hamlet residential zone to permit a sign shop establishment as a permitted use in addition to the other uses permitted under the HR zone. This application was heard at a public meeting of Municipal Council on June 27th, 2022. Also attached to my report is report number PDS-039-22, which includes an evaluation of the proposal as well as a summary of the issues identified through the public and agency consultation process. The report that is before you this evening, it includes a chronology of the file along with council meeting excerpts and options for council's consideration with related implications. So just in terms of context, the subject property, it's located on the east side of Elgin Road and south of Mossley Drive in the hamlet of Mossley. It is 3/4 of an acre in size, and the property contains a single detached dwelling known municipally as 4074 Elgin Road, and a metal-clad building known municipally as 4086 Elgin Road. So there's two addresses assigned and two separate driveways. One driveway is used for the residential use, and the other driveway is used to access the metal-clad building. The lands are designated hamlet and they're zoned hamlet residential. And surrounding land uses are residential in nature in the form of single detached dwellings. So through the subject application, the applicant is requesting that the existing sign shop be allowed in the existing building, which is otherwise not permitted. At the time of the filing of the application, it was determined that no permit was issued to allow the existing septic system, which is shared between the existing dwelling and the metal-clad building. It was also determined that there was no change of use permit to allow the conversion of the metal-clad building to accommodate the shine shop business. And in both of those cases, permits are required to ensure conformity with the Ontario Building Code. And permits cannot be issued until applicable law is met under the code, which includes zoning as well as site plan approval. I can update council that the applicant has provided the necessary background information to support a permit for the change of use for the building, as well as the background information necessary to support a permit to legitimize the existing plumbing, the tie-in from the metal-clad building into the septic system. However, the issuance of those permits cannot be issued, although they're approved in principle. They cannot be issued until zoning approval has been obtained. Also, in the case of site plan approval, the applicant has entered into a site plan agreement with the municipality. That agreement has been endorsed by the applicant. The applicant has also provided the required security to ensure that the requirements of the site plan agreement have been met. The municipality, through myself, I have yet to endorse the site plan agreement until zoning approval has been obtained. So in terms of my analysis, it is provided in the report that is attached to my primary report, and in that I provide a justification or rationale which demonstrates that this proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement and in conformity with the county and the Thames Center official plan. My report, Your Worship, lastly includes options for council's consideration should they wish to approve, deny, or defer the passing of the bylaw that is included in this evening's council agenda. So what's my recommendation, Your Worship? That this rezoning application be approved and that the implementing bylaw be passed. I'm here to answer any questions, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bancroft. Any questions from the members of council? Councillor Crockett?
Thank you, Your Worship. This sign shop has unfortunately ruffled a lot of feathers within Ward 3 and particularly the hamlet of Mossley. Unfortunately, we as a community or as a ward would like to support businesses coming into not only the ward, but also into Thames Center and even into the hamlets that surround the larger urban areas. But there's been a number of delays and infractions and disregard during this process to the current bylaw use and as well as the timelines that the municipality has sent out. So I just want to express my disappointment in that. But I do have a few questions that I would like to ask before council considers this bylaw change. So to you, Mr. Bancroft, why has this business been able to operate over the last some years while not zoned appropriately?
Through Your Worship, unfortunately, the municipality does not have the authority to stop a business from operating without a court order. Staff did consider the laying of charges by engaging our solicitor. However, the applicant did eventually move to the submission of required documentation to advance their proposal. So even though that process was extremely slow, the applicant was still showing initiative in terms of moving towards compliance. You know, I should also add that by comparison, the courts operate at an even slower pace. And also, I should point out that the courts would perhaps be sympathetic to the applicant for making efforts to advance towards compliance. I just want to conclude by saying that the concerns by the community are valid in terms of this process taking a considerable amount of time. But I'm hopeful that perhaps some sort of closure to this process can be met. Thank you.
Thank you. Any follow-up? Councillor Crawford?
Yes, your worship, if that's all right, if I can continue. I'll kind of solidify a few others in regards to the concerns, specifically pertaining to open storage at this facility. As you know, this is a residential hamlet, and these signs are essentially the mobile signs that have like the neon letters that can be set up anywhere. In your report, it says that there would be no open storage outside. Can you confirm that? In addition to that, what parameters are going to be in place to ensure the commercial business does not encroach onto the residential portion of the properties?
So through you, your worship, the way the bylaw is crafted for council's consideration, it includes a prohibition on open storage. And so what that means is signs cannot be left out in the open on this property. Signs either have to be contained within the existing building or alternatively need to be loaded into either a truck or a trailer for delivery. In terms of encroachment onto the residential use, it's unlikely that there could be an expansion of the existing building footprint, considering the location of the septic system, which is basically between the metal-clad building and the dwelling, and also the need for on-site parking relative to the sign shop.
And then I just have one final question. I know that in the initial application, the applicant stated that he was moving into the residence. In order for the hamlet residential rezoning to take place, does the owner of the residence have to live there? Because my understanding is that there's rental occupants in the residential unit at this time.
Through you, your worship, the owner is not required to reside on the property while operating the business, since this is not a home occupation per se. So there's no stipulations to that effect. So certainly tenants could continue to reside in the dwelling. We have no control over who the occupants are of the dwelling.
Thank you, Mr. Bancroft. I'm finished, your worship.
Any other questions from council? Councillor Heyman?
No question, but just a comment that I'd like to support the ward councillor in her displeasure on this matter. And I think that when the amendment was granted conditionally, that was an opportunity to come into compliance. And we saw further infractions within that time period, specifically the septic. And I just don't think that that's what, I don't think that's in the spirit of why it was granted in the first place. And again, some of these conditional uses, I'm of the belief that, you know, if you're a good neighbor, then you get privileges, and if you don't, then there's consequences.
Thank you, Councillor Heyman. Any other comments or questions from council? Councillor Lockie?
Through your worship. So there was obviously like a lot of comments from the public. Are there any that have not been addressed that we may hear from later? Like, could you foresee any other things that we need to know about that aren't aware?
Through you, your worship, My report includes a summary of all comments received from the public. And my report goes along to speak to the issues that have been identified by the public. So I have nothing further to add, Your Worship.
Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. Anything else from council? Deputy Mayor Smyberg.
Just a question to the director. Can you let me know what permitted uses are in the HR zone?
So through you, Your Worship, the uses that are permitted under the HR zone include a bed and breakfast establishment, a converted dwelling, meaning if you have a single detached dwelling, you could convert it into two separate dwelling units. Similarly, a duplex dwelling, a semi-detached dwelling, a single detached dwelling, and then lastly, a residential home occupation. That rounds out the uses permitted under the HR zone.
Thank you.
Anything else from council? So before we move on to the recommended motion, council was presented with three options on page 5 of the report. Any thoughts? Approve, deny, defer? Seeing none, then we'll, okay, Councillor Crockett?
At this time, I would like to go with the option to deny.
Anyone else? A comment? Tom? Okay. Any other comments? No? Okay. I'm going to have to defer to the clerk on the next step then on this particular application, please.
So the motion would be that the application for zoning bylaw Z 10-22 submitted by Rasha Nassar for the lands legally described as part of Lot 12, Concession 3, SRT Geographic Township of North Dorchester and designated as Part 1 on Plan 33R 5967 and Part 1 on Plan 33R 1719 in the municipality of Thames Center and known municipally as 4074 and 4086 Elgin Road be denied.
All right, that would be the recommended motion then, and
We have a mover and a
a mover
seconder.
and a seconder for that. For the motion to deny. Councillor Crockett? She's already
We already
moved
have a
it.
mover and a
Yeah.
seconder. Yes, so just a vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, all in favor? And none opposed, so that motion carries. Thank you, Mark. And I would imagine then the next one, you are also taking item 10.4, application for draft plan of condominium 39T-TC CDM 2301 Putnam Road Holdings, applicant Matthew Campbell as the agent, and 3174 Putnam Road. Go
Yes,
ahead.
thank you, Your Worship. So this report provides an evaluation of the subject application to facilitate the development of an industrial vacant land condominium. Council may recall that this proposal was presented at a public meeting in Municipal Council last November. And so my report includes a summary of the public and agency consultation process, along with a recommendation for council's consideration. This property, it's a 33-acre farm situated east of Putnam Road and on the south side of Breen Road and north of Highway 401. Along Putnam Road, the lands are separated by an existing railway line. This property is used for farming purposes for the cultivation of field crops and contains a single detached dwelling, a barn, and a detached garage with a laneway access across the railway line to Putnam Road. The dwelling's privately serviced by a well and a septic system. This land is also affected by the Adam Drain, which is a municipal drain which bisects the property. And as such, these lands are regulated under the Conservation Authorities Act. These lands are designated rural industrial under the Thames Center official plan, and likewise are zoned general industrial M1. Surrounding land uses are generally industrial in nature. We've got lands to the east, which are used for farming purposes for the cultivation of field crops, whereas we've got existing and future industrial uses located north of the subject lands, whereas Highway 401 is located to the immediate south. In terms of the proposal, again, it's a plan of condominium to support a total of 3 units to support industrial development opportunities in the form of truck terminals. When I say 3 units, Your Worship, since this is a vacant land condominium, it's essentially synonymous with 3 lots. The condominium would be accessible by a private road, being a shared common element feature, and each unit or lot would be serviced by their own individual well and septic system. All existing buildings and structures would also be removed from the property. And similar to plans of subdivision, the County of Middlesex is the delegated approval authority for plans of condominium. And before the county is in a position to make a decision, this application must first be considered by Thames Center Council and subject to agency and community engagement. So in the circulation of the application to agencies, the County of Engineers indicated that the applicant will be required to contribute to intersection improvements at Breen Road and Putnam Road, including traffic, signals, and railway crossing improvements. Also, the county and the municipality are completing preliminary design and costs, which will be appropriated at the time the estimated costs of the improvements are determined. From the Ministry of Transportation, they've provided a number of conditions of draft plan approval, which should be included, including but not limited to a stormwater management report, a traffic impact study. Should there be a need for highway improvements, that those costs should be borne by the applicant. Also, any lands that are deemed to be required for the purposes of highway improvements would be dedicated to the ministry. They're also asking for the erection of a security fence where the property meets Highway 401. From the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, similarly, they also offer conditions of draft plan approval, including the need for a flood modeling assessment, also a slope stability assessment, a meander belt analysis. They also acknowledge the fact that since the property is regulated, there will need to be necessary permits from the UTRCA prior to undertaking any site alteration. From Hydro One, they have no comment. From Enbridge, they've indicated the need as a condition of approval, the need for any necessary easements for their the provision of gas services. From our Public Works Director, he's indicated an entrance permit will be required to be submitted and approved by the municipality. This development shall be required to comply with the recommendations of the study being undertaken to facilitate road improvements related to Breen Road, Putnam Road, and the railway intersection. Our director also points out that the owner should be responsible to have the existing on-site potable water well for the house decommissioned by a qualified well technician, and a copy of the well record confirming the said decommissioning be provided to the municipality. Our drainage superintendent, he notes drainage reassessments will be required, and we have no comment from our chief building official. In terms of public comments received, your worship, we have one thus far from NGL Supply Company Limited. This is on behalf of the Putnam Terminal Company. They are a propane storage related industry. They have reviewed and they have no concerns with this proposal. Also in my report, we have excerpts of the public meeting of municipal council, which confirms that there were no members of the public in attendance. Also, within my report, your worship, I've got my analysis, which evaluates the subject application. Certainly what is being proposed would be consistent with the municipality's vision for the development of the lands. This proposed development, given the rural industrial designation, it's appropriate for the area, and it would require private servicing in the absence of full municipal services. Also, our official plan provides policy direction for the conveyance of lands, including by condominium, requiring that the applicant enter into an agreement to be registered on title to ensure the proper and orderly development of the lands. Recommended draft plan conditions are attached for council's consideration, which would more or less be implemented through an agreement with the applicant. All comments received have been considered, and they have been generally addressed or can be appropriately addressed through conditions of draft plan approval or through a future site plan application, which will need to be dealt with on a per lot or unit basis. One thing that I should point out, your worship, is that although the majority of the lots or units would conform with the zoning bylaw from a lotting standpoint in terms of frontage and lot area, I did discover that Unit 3 is an exception and that there's a deficiency. The zoning requires a minimum frontage of 30 meters, whereas it would have a deficient frontage of 16 meters. That deficiency can be remedied through a minor variance approval, which could be included as a condition of draft plan approval. So I do have a condition noted requiring a variance approval to address that deficiency. So without further ado, your worship, it's my recommendation that the municipality recommend to the county of Middlesex the issuance of draft plan of condominium approval and subject to the conditions that are attached to my report. I'm here to answer any questions, your worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Does anyone from council have a question? Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Worship. I think you actually kind of answered it in your last comment there. So there would be no entry from Putnam Road over the railroad tracks. It would all be down that common element as it's labeled.
That is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else with a question? Okay, well, you have the motion in front of you, council. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Lucky and Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. The next one is the item number 10.5, LS-C-001-24, transition to the new Middlesex OPP Detachment Board, and I'll ask Mr. Barrick to present.
Thank you for that, Mayor. So the report that you have before you is both but of an update with respect to the process relating to the transition from the Thames Center Police Services Board to a broader Middlesex Police Services Board. The implementation timeframe is slated to be for April 1st, in which time the Thames Center Board will be dissolved and the new board should be in place. In order to help expedite that, because we're already at the end of January, you have before you an option to appoint one Thames Center council member, which is the prerogative of Thames Center. You see in the report some of the other seats as they've been approved by the province. So Middlesex Center gets one as well. the other municipalities need to share the 2 seats, so they'll be having those conversations. There's also 2 citizen appointees. Before you, you have a recommendation for Thames Center to consider nominating the current board chair that we have for Thames Center, Jim Maudsley. That nomination would then be circulated to the other local municipalities for its consideration as well. We're submitting that name to you as a recommendation, given the strength that this particular individual has in the experience as current chair and the relative newness of the Police Services Board function amongst the other local municipalities, we believe is critical to ensure the success of this transition. And so it is here before you for your consideration. The other steps related to what happens next, ideally would all be fulfilled once this new board is cast. Once we know who the appointments are, that board could serve as a working group ahead of April 1st. They do have some required training to take before they sit as a formal board, but really that would then be the body to make further recommendations and or approvals with respect to administration, budget, how local municipalities get billed, et cetera. And again, so this is before you today to get the ball rolling to consider an appointment, Thames Center Council appointment to this board. I've been working with the local CAOs, the Association of Police Services Board, as well as the province, to try to be able to be in a position to provide any advice to you as a council, as well as other local municipalities to have some level of alignment in terms of what they're also bringing forward to their respective councils. We would be the first to appoint here tonight if council is in a position to do that. The other local municipalities will be a little bit behind us, but the overall game plan is ideally to have the board members selected and trained leading into April 1st. So that's the first and foremost item, and that's why it's before you here today. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I do want to thank both of our clerks, clerk and deputy clerk, Jana and Sarah, for all the work that they've been doing to support the Police Services Board, as well as putting some of the information together before you on this report today.
Thanks, Mr. Barrick. Any questions from council? Deputy Mayor Smyber?
I think it's more of a comment, and I do agree with CEO Barrick that I think Jim Maudsley would be an asset. I think he's a needed resource for this new Police Services Board. So I fully support that, and I would be interested in being the council representative on that board.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Crockett?
Through you, your worship, I would just like to agree that I think Michelle would be a great addition to the new Police Services Board.
Good. Anyone else with a question or comment? Tom?
Yeah, just I think the committee would be lucky to have former Mayor Maudsley, as you know, he's still involved with the county, and I think he's well up to date with, you know, the whole county, not just Thames Center issues. And yeah, definitely a length of and breadth of experience both here in Thames Center and serving on the provincial Police Services Board.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, then we do have the motion before us. Do I have a mover and a seconder? I'm sorry, did I?
Could we just, we're going to amend the motion that and that council choose to appoint Deputy Mayor Michelle Spybert as the Thames Center Council representative. Just replace that.
All right, okay. So, yes?
Yeah, I would make that motion.
Okay, so we have moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Okay, thank you. I don't believe there's any unfinished business unless somebody has something. Oh, Councillor Lockie?
Sorry, your worship. So I should have declared a declaration of pecuniary interest before proceeding, but I do have one for the closed session with respect to the appointment of Economic Development Committee members.
Okay, that's noted. Thank you. And now item number 12 is notice of motion, 12.1, Deputy Mayor Smybert to report on the resolution support for the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors, AORS, to develop a municipal equipment operator course. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you. As council knows, we did receive correspondence from that association, and they're looking for our support. I personally think this is very innovative of the association in an attempt to try to get some new people into that particular trade, and given the labor shortage, maybe it's something that other associations should be looking at. And I fully support the idea of a consistent regulated course that's similar across all municipalities. So I really I do think that they've done some good work here, and I'm happy to move the motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Smyburn. Do we have a seconder for the movement or any questions in the meantime? Don't think so. Yes, no? Okay, a seconder for the motion then? Councillor Lockie, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. New business, let me see here. Item number 13, Middlesex London Health Unit, 2024 request for letter for private applications for mosquito larviciding permits. You've had a chance to read it, so any questions from the members of council regarding this item? Councillor Heeman?
I'd like to move the recommended motion.
Okay, thank you. We have a mover, a seconder for this particular motion? Deputy Mayor Smyburn? All in favor? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. Grand River Conservation Authority Lake Erie Region Source Protection Committee Municipal Member Nomination. Does council have any questions about that? Okay, a mover and a seconder for the motion that council supports the nomination of Alex Piggott, Manager of Environmental Services at the Municipality of Central Elgin, as municipal representative for Group 7 on the Lake Erie Region Source Protection Committee. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Smyburn, and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Thank you. The motion carries. Bylaws that, you're gonna start at number 8. Okay.
So this one, we're pulling number 7, which was the one that you guys chose to deny. So item 14.1 bylaw 7-2024. So the recommendation will be that bylaws 8-2024 through 9-2024 be adopted.
Okay, so you've heard the clerk, any a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Smyburn and Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Motion carried. All right. We're about to go into mayors. Yes?
Just I was going to ask for a recess actually before we go to closed session, but can I just please, in the spirit of optimism, give a huge shout out to our staff for all of the work that they did in association with the Provincial Curling Championships this past week. We've received nothing but accolades and really great comments about our facility. And again, staff did everything that they were asked to do. They went over and above you know, their normal work. I know that they did. They put some extra hours in, and that's greatly appreciated. And it was just great to see Thames Center working so well with not only the town of Ingersoll, but the Ingersoll Curling Club. Overall, it was a tremendous event. So thank you.
It was. I echo those comments. Really nice job in the arena. The ice looked like it was in great condition. And it seemed to me on Sunday night that there was a pretty good representation around the committee and lots of volunteers too. Very good job. Very good job. I think we're ready to go into closed session. So we'll go, we'll make the motion and then we can, and then we will take a 10-minute break. Okay, so the motion to move into closed session that resolved that council adjourn its closed session at 7:19 PM pursuant to section 239 2B of the Municipal Act, being personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board members, with respect to appointing community representatives to the Economic Development Advisory Committee. A mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Crockett. All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. All right, 10-minute break and back at about I'd like to advise that during the closed session, council discussed personal matters about an unidentifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, with respect to appointing community representatives to the Economic Development Advisory Committee. Do any members of council have a motion that they would like to bring forward? I'm going to turn this over to the clerk.
So the motion would be that council appoint the following community representatives to the Economic Development Advisory Committee: Jacob Barbo, Jeff Crosby, Chris Green, Chelsea Hicks Webster, James Iglesias, Arden McLean, Delia Reish, Glenn Thorell, and Helen Wilson. And that the terms of reference for the Economic Development Advisory Committee be amended to increase the maximum membership to 11 members. And that the clerk be directed to update the appointment bylaw accordingly for council's consideration at the February 12th, 2024 meeting of council.
A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Heeman and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? Motion carries. Confirmatory bylaw, item number 17 on the agenda, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution of the municipality of Thames Centre. And that bylaw number 10-2024 being the confirmatory bylaw be adopted as presented. A mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Crockett. All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. Just to advise, the next meeting of council will be on Monday, February the 12th, 2024 at 5 PM here in the council chambers. And again on Monday, February the 26th, 2024, also 5 PM here in the council chambers. I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Councillor Crockett and Councillor Heeman, and the time of the adjournment is 8:19 PM. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much.